Heather Thomas, you are a singer, songwriter, overall badass musician, amazing drummer with tons of pocket. Welcome to David's Percussion Discussion. Thank you very much for joining me.
Absolutely.
You're coming to us all the way from Seattle, right?
That's right, yeah. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you calling me up.
No, thank you for your time. It's super cool to be able to chat to you. So you grew up in Washington, I believe.
Yeah.
How long have you been in Seattle?
I moved to Seattle in 2012.
Okay. And how long have you been a drummer? Because I know drums were your first instrument, right? So you kind of like straight in, drums, that's what I want to do.
Yeah,
How long
I
have you been
started
drumming?
in 5th grade band and I've been playing ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I started out on snare drum and then went into marching band and then I played in the church, I played in the jazz band and combos, and then I went to college and studied percussion performance.
How did you get so much kind of experience so quickly? Like, what happened at that point in your life that you were doing all of those things around drumming? How did you get that?
Well, before I was even drumming, I had started tap dancing, which is another very musical, very rhythmic experience. Also, like, has a lot to do with learning sequences of things and doing them in time. I was thinking about it the other day, and I was like, the reason that it was so easy for me to pick up swing was because one of my first tap dance songs was swung, and so like we were practicing our moves, a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 1, and so it wasn't hard for me to switch over to doing that on the ride cymbal. But yeah, I think I always was I like to have fun. I'm a very expressive person, and so I was drawn to these more rhythmic, fun things. So from a very young age, I was on stage. I was performing tap dance, and I liked it. It was really fun. And I was really fortunate. I had a lot of encouragement early on. I had a lot of support from my family, from my teachers. People were very encouraging to me, and always told me I was doing great. And so I feel like I got a lot of help early on that really encouraged me to continue.
Yeah, so that combination of kind of being exposed to kind of music and rhythm very early on obviously makes it a lot easier to pick up a musical instrument later, right? Because there are some people that I know who haven't had a musical background who, when you try to teach them drums, they don't quite get it. And they're like, what is swung? And they don't quite understand how to play different styles. So you had a head start.
Yeah, well, the other thing is my dad's a drummer, and so he didn't play drums for most of my life early on because he had like played it back in high school. And then when I was in like 3rd grade, I think, he bought a drum set and started playing drums at the church. And so I would go to rehearsals and just watch, and I just got to see him doing it, and I thought it was really cool. And so when it was time to play an instrument, I didn't really care what I was going to play. I just wanted to play music. I don't know why. I just was drawn to it. And he was like, well, if you want to play the drums, I can help you with that one. I don't really know any other instruments. And I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. And turns out it is the coolest. And so I was really, really fortunate. Drummers who have kids and then like encourage their kids to play the drums is such a cool thing. It's such a great thing to give to a young person. I feel like drumming is the coolest thing that ever happened to me. It set off the whole trajectory of my life. And I'm so glad that early on someone said, hey, if you want to do this, I'll help you.
So you were kind of encouraged by your family to start drumming. What about your friends at that time? Were they like really musical as well? Were you doing it to form friendships, or was it less about the friends and more about kind of just exploring it for yourself?
Well, so all of my friends in band were musicians. So I was always like I said, I started band in 5th grade. And so I had friends around me who were playing instruments. Like one of my best friends played French horn. And then when I was a teenager, one of my good friends was a guitar player, and he played in like a blues band with his dad. And so when I was 15, we had this band together. We started playing a bunch of blues and like shuffle, and I still play with him to this day. His name's Jarrett Samples. He's a great artist here in Seattle. He plays with a ton of other great artists here too. Seattle's such a cool scene. There's so many good musicians here. But yeah, so I started playing and we never played any shows. We just would come up to my living room and practice, and we always joke because we could never keep a bass player around for too long. And I remember I loved playing. I liked playing rock and I liked playing funk. And I even early on I was playing like jazz and Latin stuff. And in that band we were always playing shuffles, and I was like, I don't want to play shuffle anymore. I want to play something else. And he would pick another song and I would be like, that's just a shuffle but faster. And he was like, I don't know, that was just the kind of music he was listening to. And now I'm so grateful for that because it's such a great tool to have in your tool bag to have a good solid shuffle. And I remember that was one thing one of my early drum teachers told me. He's like, hey, if you want to be a gigging drummer, one thing you cannot afford not to have in your tool bag is you've got to have a good solid shuffle. And I listened to him, and I'm so glad that I did, because all the time in the middle of any type of genre, you might want to go into that type of swung backbeat feel. So that was, it was cool that was one of my first bands when I was a teenager, was really like a blues band.
Mm-hmm. And did you have formal lessons, or obviously just being as a part of the band? Was that your lesson?
No, I got drum lessons pretty early on. I had a really great drum teacher in Puyallup. I'm from Puyallup, which is it's like by Tacoma, maybe like an hour south of Seattle. And so I had this really great drum teacher who showed me a lot of different styles. He taught me how to improvise. He taught me how to read music. And I studied with him for a couple of years. And maybe when I was like in 7th grade. And then he switched me over to another teacher who I studied with for all the way through high school. And I loved that drum teacher. I still do, of course. He's amazing. And I learned a lot about, like, he played in like kind of funky pocket bands, and so I learned a lot about just like playing grooves, and he had me doing a lot of like solo exercises and fills. I was also, because I was in school, we were doing, the solo ensemble. I was in marching band, so I was doing a lot of reading, a lot of rudimental playing. I'm a lifetime drummer. I've been doing this since I was a kid, and so you cover a lot of bases when you just stick with it for that long. But yeah, so I was really, really fortunate to get good drum lessons from some really, really caring teachers. And then I went to college and I studied percussion performance at Central Washington University. And again, just excellent, excellent training and education from someone who really cared and was a master at their craft. So, I'm so fortunate. And that's one of the reasons I love to teach, and I love to give people lessons or give them even just encouragement, because I got so much of it when I was learning, and I know how much it did for me. I know how much that encouraged me to keep going and to keep practicing and to keep getting better, and to not slow down and not drop out on what I wanted to do.
And throughout school and university, did you have a vision for what you wanted to achieve with drumming, or was it just a case of improving, trying different styles, playing in different bands? What did you want to do?
I wanted to tour the world and play on big stages and be on TV and just like write music. I just wanted to be a performer and someone who gets to share music with the world. I've always had big dreams. I want to do. There's all kinds of really fun goals I have for myself. As a career musician, I know how long you can be in this game and how many different things you can accomplish over the span of a lifetime. And so I'm consistently looking for inspiration from myself of what I want to do. That's what I wanted. I wanted to be a gigging performing drummer. I wanted to be known for that and make my money that way, and also to help other people and to inspire other people to do the same thing.
And you have been a gigging drummer for a long time. You've been on tour, you've been around the world, you've played with various bands. And what's that like? For someone who hasn't done it, how would you describe it? What did you learn from that experience?
The lifestyle of being a touring and traveling performing musician is one of the most interesting and fun and exciting and wild times that you can have. I love what I get to do. It brings me so much joy in so many different ways. And it's cool. So there's so many different avenues you can take. You can really kind of imagine what you want to do and do that for yourself. So like if you want to be a touring musician, there's so many different ways to do that. But touring musician is only one facet of a huge industry that includes, if what you want to do is write the kind of songs that you're hearing on the radio and develop those types of beats, that's something that's available to you too. And you can do that and tour, or you can do that and license it or send it off to other people, or you can direct a band, or you can just be the sideman in someone else's band who you really believe in. There's just really there's no limit. And there's also no predicting what'll happen in your career. You'll run into all kinds of different opportunities, many you would never expect. And the thing is, you work consistently and you show up consistently and you practice what you need to practice. And you just will continue to create whatever it is you're creating. So for me, touring is some of the most fun I ever have. I love going to a new city every day, or going to a new city and spending a week there, or my last tour that I did was last year. And it was wild. My plan was to spend each month living in a different city. And that's how I was going to tour the US. I was going to go to all these different music cities and just invest in the music scenes, perform as much as possible, do as many collaborations and studio sessions and writing as I could. And I did that up until the pandemic hit. And then it slowed me down a little bit, and I had to shift my gears from, instead of playing as much live music as possible, I had to turn it into a more inward focused, more settled in thing. But I still continued around the country. I moved to a new city every month, and had a different version I got to experience like shelter in place pandemic life in like 10 different cities last year. It was really, really interesting. But yeah, I love traveling. I can't get enough of it. I'm one of those people who, like, when I'm in the same place for too long, I start to like get all these ideas about where I could go from there. And yeah, so, and that's something you don't have to do it that way either, though. Like, you can develop something that's very unique to you, and you can play it where you live, and you can become the character of your corner of the world, and so, and everything in between. There's no more interesting life than pursuing a creative career. It's amazing. I totally recommend it. It's very difficult. You have to work hard, and you have to commit over and over to what you believe in, and you have to make choices that may include sacrifices, or may include uncertainty, of course, but totally worth it. Absolutely recommend it. Life's really interesting and cool.
Nothing seems to deter you from like pursuing different opportunities, right? Because all of those things that you listed there at the start of that, all of those options and potential kind of pitfalls, some people would look at that and go, that's really scary. I don't know where to begin. I'd rather not do that. I'd rather do something that's a little bit more secure.
Yeah.
Whereas you look at that and you're like, yeah, like, bring it on. Anything could happen, and that, like, life is all the better for that. So
yeah.
Is there anything that scares you or makes you think twice?
Yeah, all kinds of things. I try and pay attention to what scares me. And I really try and look at it. And I try and be really honest with myself when I'm afraid of something or when I'm scared of something, because I've learned that I am often able to face my fears and like overcome whatever obstacle it is that I'm afraid of that's in front of what I want to do. There's a good chance that you're afraid of something that you're actually bigger than, and you're actually maybe have something to learn. Maybe you do need to develop a new skill. Maybe you're afraid to do something because you don't have a skill. Maybe you need to develop that skill. And so it's not that I'm not afraid of things. It's that I try to make a practice of facing my fears. And I do it in all kinds of different ways. But that's like, fear to me is a good signal that shows me that I'm avoiding something or that there's growth. Because a lot of times you're afraid of things that aren't actually dangerous. Fear is really valuable when you're in danger. Fear is the tool that gets you up out of the dangerous situation. But if you're not actually in a dangerous situation and you're thinking like you're afraid of something, is it even a real thing that you're afraid of? It's a possibility of a thing. And sometimes you can realize that it's a possibility of a thing, and then you can go, okay, well, how can I protect myself from that? And then you don't have to worry about it. Like, if you're afraid that you're gonna run out of money, you can like, but then what you need to do is look at your money situation and start working at it and make it so that that's not something that you're afraid of. And there's so many different ways that can come up, and different people have different obstacles, and it's not easy, and it's not like, oh, you just, but what I'm saying is, if it's something you're afraid of, it's worth the work of going through the thing that you're afraid of onto the other side of what it is you want.
Mm-hmm. Because you've talked before about intentionality and doing things very intentionally. And you've also talked about how you journal, right? Yeah. So you've used journaling.
Yeah.
Is that something that's a daily practice? And is that something that you use to like reflect on very frequently? Or is it a kind of a weekly or a monthly thing? How does that manifest itself?
I keep my journal on me all the time. And I don't have a routine of writing in it at the same time every day. And I don't write in it every single day, but it's usually where I go to when I'm feeling an intense emotion, or if I'm feeling upset about something, or if I'm feeling confused and I need to write it out, or if I'm just having a lot of ideas and I don't know what to do, I'm getting overwhelmed. I will try and write it down. I'll try and talk myself through. And a lot of times it's cool because what all is on your mind is in the way of something else. And sometimes you can start to grab a thought up here and it'll just drop you down into whatever's at the bottom of it. So you can be like, if I'm nervous because I have too many things to do tomorrow and I'm afraid I'm going to be late. And then you drop into, why am I afraid that I'm going to be late? What do I think is going to happen if I'm late? Can I let people know? Can I reschedule it? Like, maybe I don't even need to worry about this thing. Maybe I'm stressing about something that's a result of a pattern. Maybe I have a habit of doing things so that I show up late. And where does that come from? And is there a belief that's holding that in place that doesn't need to serve me anymore? Or do I look at like, how do I actually enjoy that? How do maybe I like the feeling of running late, and maybe that's hard to admit because people tell you it's wrong, right? But if you can be honest about it, then you don't have to be so, held back by it, you can, and then in the future, if you're learning from your processes, you'll be able to see those kinds of things. You'll be like, oh, I'm doing that thing where I'm trying to stress myself out because I want the excuse of being too busy to be why I'm upset, but really I'm just upset about something else, and just like, I don't know, it's a learning process. You get to know yourself pretty well if you're paying attention. And I think journaling is helpful because you go through so many different phases in your life. Like, no matter who you are, you're not the same person from, like, who you are as a child is a different person in the world than who you are now. It's the same storyline. You're learning the same lessons. You might have the same memory, but like, you can learn things from that person because that person is in a different place. And so I think journaling is really valuable. You can see how you've grown and changed. You can see if you're not changing, if you're still dealing with the same things, it can just make that apparent. I think it's a really valuable tool. I don't do it like strictly, but I do it a lot. It's important to me. And when I started doing it, I really started writing better music. That's when I started writing. I really started writing songs after that. And that has been such a wonderful thing to do for myself, just to have that outlet and to be able to share it with other people.
I was going to say, did you see your songwriting that you developed? Because you developed that quite recently, didn't you? Right,
yeah. I know, it feels like I started it kind of late, but at this point I've really been doing it for a while.
And was that as a direct result of journaling and having all these internal thoughts that you wanted to express outwardly?
It was a combination of things, but one of the main influencers was that I was in a house with a bunch of other musicians, and a couple of them were really brilliant songwriters. And we would always just sit around the room and sing each other's songs. And we would sing in harmony, and we would play guitars and hand drums and percussion or actual drums. And it was so special, and I loved the feeling I got from listening to someone else be honest with their emotions and singing along with them. And I wanted that feeling. I wanted to give the feeling I was getting to other people. And I felt like, wow, I have a lot to say. I have a lot to learn. And I want to be able to share that with people. So so the way that I did it, because as a musician, like, I know how long it takes to learn how to do something and how much work it takes. And So sometimes if I'm learning something new, I'll try and be as direct as possible and go like, okay, what do I need to do to build these skills? So what I did is I took a songwriting class online from Berkeley, and it was like it was a free class, but it was like maybe a couple months long. And by the end of it, I had all these songwriting tools, and I hadn't really effectively finished writing a song yet, but I kept trying, and I kept going into that space. And then eventually I started writing lyrics, and they started to be really melodic, and they had all these underlying, like, I was aware of some, like, I didn't make some of the early mistakes you make as a songwriter, because my training involved how to avoid cliches, how to effectively develop a metaphor, how to use rhyme scheme to build motion into your lyrics. And then like a whole exercise on types of rhymes and ways to combine things and rhyme schemes. And so it was cool because I had all that technical information and practice. And then I just had the things I was feeling to use to like generate those songs. So I feel like the first songs I wrote, I still am really proud of. I feel like they were beautiful songs. And part of it was because I took songwriting lessons, and at the same time I also started taking voice lessons, because as soon as you start listening to yourself sing, you start recording yourself, you go, oh, I'm not a good singer, I shouldn't do this. That's a normal response. It's normal the first time to be like, I'm not a good singer, I'm bad at this, everyone tells me my voice isn't good. And that's a normal place to start, until you understand how, your breath control and like how to tune your voice. Like, it is a muscle, it's a physical muscle. If you haven't developed the skill to sing in tune, that's normal, And I think a lot of people don't sing because they aren't good singers. And I'm like, it just takes practice though. You might not have a great voice now, but if you can speak, there's a way to train your voice to do that musically. And what you have to say is important. It's not necessarily important that you are the most beautiful singer in the world. If your goal is to be the most beautiful singer in the world, start practicing, and love yourself through that, because it's going to be a hard thing to achieve. But in the meantime, if you just want to sing songs and feel good about it, you can practice that, you can learn it. It's absolutely worth it to take voice lessons, because you can fall in love with your voice. You can fall in love with the songs you sing with other people and the things that you have to offer. And, really, your voice is one of the most in tune things you have to communicate, And so it's worth developing. I really advocate for learning how to sing, even if you don't intend to be the world's greatest singer.
Mm-hmm. It's exactly the same with drumming as well, though, right? Because when you first sit down at a drum kit, you don't automatically have the independence and the skill to play whatever you want to play. Mm-hmm. You have to work at it. And again, recording yourself on the drums, I've found, has been really useful in listening back and going, did that sound how I thought it sounded? Right. No, it actually didn't sound any good at all. I need to work on that, Yeah. So, absolutely.
Yeah, and I can tell you that I go through that all the time too, where you'll be thinking you're sounding pretty good on something, and you listen back and you're like, oh, that actually wasn't very good. Time to get back to work. And it's easy when that happens to make value judgments on your own abilities, and you go, wow, I'm no good, I suck at this. And it's like, well, you need to work on this. Maybe you're not that good at it right now, but at the same, I was talking to someone the other day, and they were like, I was trying to play along to this drum track, and the drummer was just on it, and I couldn't keep up and this and that. And I was like, you realize you're comparing your first draft to them having played that song for 10 years, maybe. Mm-hmm. You're looking at a drummer who's been practicing in that band. Maybe this is their first record, maybe it's their fourth, but either way, you're comparing your first take to their final take. And that's not fair, because that's not the same amount of work. If you haven't done that much work, you have no reason to look at yourself like, oh, I should be better. Well, should you, or do you just have more work to do? Maybe you're exactly as good as the amount of work you've put in, and maybe you're better than you think. Maybe you're not as good as you think, but it almost doesn't matter. You just got to keep working on what you can see needs the work.
Mm-hmm. What you're saying is you have to understand and give yourself permission to fail and to know that it's a process, right? So you have to be kind to yourself. I've struggled with it and I still do, and I'm sure everybody does, in wanting to be as good as the people that you listen to who have been practicing like all their life and playing all their life. I've picked up drums relatively late in life, and I want to be Gavin Harrison. I ain't going to be Gavin Harrison. It's going to take me, another 20 years to get anywhere close to being Gavin Harrison, and I don't know if I'm okay with that. I need to get to peace with that, but it's forgiving yourself and understanding that it's a long process, and it's okay to be on that journey, right?
Yeah, the other thing is you got to be honest with yourself about what you want, because you got to know, am I willing to do the work to get what I want? Because you can look at Gavin Harrison and go, the distance between where I'm at and where that is 20 years maybe. But is it 20 years of what I'm doing now? Or am I going to have to change my lifestyle if I want to be that good? Because think about the drummers you're comparing yourself to. I don't know what his practice routine is like, but it's probably pretty good, And so it's a matter of, if you want to build towards that, you got to be honest with yourself. If I want to be as good as Steve Smith playing on all those Indian rhythms over these drum solos, you're going to have to put in a lot of time on that. And not just like a years of time, but like daily, you're going to be doing that for hours. And so that's absolutely doable, and anyone has the ability, if they choose to direct their energy that way, you absolutely can play just as well as the best drummer that you see. If you're willing to dedicate to it and to not stop short of it, and to not move away from your issues when instead you need to work through them and you actually need to keep practicing. But that's what it takes. And if that's not what you want, like, that is absolutely fine. If you want, be honest with what you want. Do I want to be a Gavin Harris drummer? Do I want to play in my friend's band at the bar down the street and have a really good time and get free food afterwards? Like, if that's what you want, dedicate that same amount of time to just doing that. But yeah, whatever you strive for is possible. You just have to be really honest with yourself. Like, is what I'm doing right now going to result in that? Because it's not about maybe later, maybe someday I'll practice enough to be that good. It's like, well, if it's not today, then go ahead and put that thought out of your mind. Pick it up another day when you are willing to do the work, but otherwise, just put it down. Think about what it is today that you're willing to dedicate your life to, and do that today. If it changes tomorrow, go ahead and follow that. But a lot of us are stuck up in the cloud of like wanting to be something that we're not, but also like not being honest about what work it would take to get there and whether or not we're about to be doing that today. Are we doing that right now? Because that's what it is. Your life is happening right now. It's not like someday I'll change and become a drummer who practices for 3 hours a day. It's like, well, if you want to become that, maybe start today. You don't have to start with 3 hours a day, but if that's your goal, start today with 20 minutes and do it every day, and then move it up to 30, and then sometimes go to 2 hours, and then start building towards it. You can have the lifestyle that you want. I think you just have to really build towards it. Oh, my light just went out.
So what are you working on at the moment? How much time do you spend behind your drum kit on a daily or a weekly basis? And what is it that is driving you to get to the next kind of point in your career?
So for me, what I'm working on right now is I have been developing a bunch of songs over the course of last year, and even before then. I have a lot of songs that I'm aiming to record and to release. I've been trying to put together an album for a while now. During COVID, it's been really difficult to make all that come together. But that's what I've been working on, is I have a collection of songs. And so in my practice time, often what I'm doing is, like, I have the next song I'm trying to record, I've been practicing that. And the way that I will practice is I go for... It depends on what point I am in the process, but a lot of times what I'll do is I'll record myself playing the song just straight through a bunch of times in a row, and I'll listen back and I'll be like, what are the problem areas? What are the places where I'm most likely to lose the groove or miss a fill or even like miss a rim shot or something? And then what I'll do is I'll focus on those areas that need the most work. and I'll just hang out there and I'll play around with them and I'll try and expand them. I practice really slowly a lot. I practice like making sure that what I'm doing is smooth and relaxed, and I'll do the same thing for like a long time to really like work the motions through my body. Because if it's something that I messed up on in real time, it's worth slowing it down and like, you know, figuring out what those motions are and really becoming comfortable with them. And then from there, I'll take those very small portions of things, you know, like you take the most difficult piece of the most difficult piece, and that's what you kind of move around with. That's what you turn into. That's how I treat chops. Chops to me are like small pieces of things, and it's maybe like the most difficult part of a riff you're playing. Well, you'll learn your inside and out all over the kit, and you develop. And again, doing it slow, doing it very smooth before you really open it up and do it fast. Because then you have time to just explore a bunch of different possibilities you maybe wouldn't consider. You can explore even like further subdivisions within that. And you also want to take, you know, if it's let's say it's a 16th note groove and you're most likely to be playing it in 16ths, you also want to be able to start on different parts of the beat or start on, you know, in a different subdivision, like maybe play it in triplets or, you know, just working on the stuff that is most likely to trip me up within my own material right now, because what I'm focusing on is my own songs. Really just trying to get deeper and deeper into the pocket in it, just working out. And it's cool because that way of doing it becomes really improvisational. You know, when you're working something out like that, you're moving an idea around. And then that has an opportunity to come out as a fill sometime later or as an accent. But yeah, just there's really no limit to how deep you can go into any topic, any subject, any genre. But that's what guides my practice, is that I'm trying to fine tune these things and get even better. I'm trying to have more dexterity around the kit. I'm trying to develop and move through issues that come up in my playing when I'm, you know, just having a good time.
Mm-hmm. And when you say that you spend a long time developing those chops and exploring those like small segments, mm-hmm. you really do mean that you spend a long time, right? Because some people watching this would think, oh yeah, I'll spend 10 minutes trying to work something out, you know? Or I'll spend maybe a couple of hours trying to get a groove right. Mm-hmm. But you would do something for weeks and months rather than hours and days, right?
Yeah, I mean, so what you practice, again, has a lot to do with what you're working on at any time. But like, yeah, so for me, coming in with this one song, I've been practicing this song for months. And I'm still, because the song is going to be with me for the rest of my life, is the thing. This is a song that I'll keep singing. This is a drum part that I'll keep developing on. You know, that's another thing, is like, we haven't been playing live shows. I normally would be playing these songs night after night in different cities and developing them with the band. Right now I'm working more kind of like studio, laying things down mode, which requires kind of a different level of focus and precision as well. But yeah, I really try to come back to the same types of things. Like the great drummers that you listen to, they are returning to the basics. Like, you ask a really brilliant drummer what they're doing, what they're practicing right now, you might get an answer like triplets. You know, like maybe that's what they practiced today, was just, you know, and of course there's layers and layers of things under that they're also, that they already have as knowledge, and so maybe they're just focusing on this within a very advanced context. But I practice my double stroke roll. I practice my singles. I practice moving them around. I practice, you know, things that you take for granted that you already know. There's still more in there for you. You're gonna keep playing these drum beats the rest of your life. You'll never get tired of that beat you love playing if you continue to expand it. So yeah, I just, whatever's the focus at the time, I really try and get into the thing that's most likely to need work. And then you can apply that in other places too. You can go, where else do I see this? Maybe, let's say if I'm working at a chop in my song, maybe I'll take that chop and I'll play it in other contexts. I'll play it in other songs. I'll play it, you know, I'll orchestrate it differently. depending on, maybe I'll take that chop and I'll see like, what does that sound like on a guitar? Like these kind of things can totally go through your whole musical life. And the other thing is I'm also practicing singing. I'm practicing songwriting. I'm practicing my guitar playing, my keyboard playing. Like I have a lot of things to practice. So for me, I'm continually developing whatever instrument I'm on, whatever I'm practicing. A lot of the concepts I'm practicing in my life apply to everything I do. So to me, it's not a distraction to go from guitar to piano because I'm reinforcing similar music theory concepts. It's not, for me to go from piano to singing and drumming, it's still all related. I'm playing, what I'm practicing on piano right now is the chords to that song that I'm singing and playing. And that, because that's just what my focus is at the moment. That's the next piece of music that I'm hoping to share with people. And the longer you do it, the deeper you go. The better you get at it, the more comfortable you are with your own songs or with whatever songs you need to learn. You really could be practicing just more. And it's great to do it with things that are actually music, things that are actually interesting to you. It's easy to get caught up in doing routines and specific exercises, but I try as often as possible to do those things in a musical context. So if I'm working let's say I'm working on New Breed and I'm trying different reading combinations with this system, maybe I'll do that across a couple different songs. Maybe I'll take that and maybe play it along with a good drum loop so that there's also other rhythm going on with me. And when I'm counting, a lot of times, like when you're really working on something that's complicated, it is great to remember to keep counting through it. I think we think that we move past counting, but the more you can do it, the more intricate things you could do. I was trying to figure out a song the other day where it turned out that the rhythm I was singing, I think it was 13 beats. And I like, it took me a second to figure out what it was because the way it was lined up had me going like, wait, what is that? But you get through it and then you go, yeah, I'm going to keep doing that as I practice. I'm going to, even if you're not counting the numbers, maybe you're counting using different syllables or different sounds, just keeping time in there, keeping it vocal, and being connected to it. Because my end goal is to be able to drum and say whatever I want and sing and, do anything. So, and again, all these skills that you're practicing, they add together. Nothing takes away from anything. You're always just expanding your skills into other things, which is why, again, it's still important to continue to go back to the fundamentals, because as you're expanding and going and you're moving from one thing to another, there's always just like check in with your hand technique, check in with your wrists, check in with your breath, check in with single stroke rolls. How are you doing today? Today's a different day than yesterday. You know what I mean?
With all of this stuff going on, all of these different instruments and all these different things to practice, do you take a very structured approach, or are you quite free-form in how you feel and what that leads you to practice a certain thing that day? Or do you must keep track of everything, right? Because otherwise it would be overwhelming, wouldn't it?
It does get overwhelming. I'm not very good at like organizing things and doing them in a specific order. My life has always lacked any sort of regular routine. And so it's difficult for me to be very regimented in my practice, but I trust myself a lot to just to do what I know I need to do in whatever moment I'm in. And also I really follow my passion when I'm practicing or something. I'll go for what I am going to get joy out of. Like you still have to buckle in and do the hard stuff. But like you also, there's always something that you want to be doing. If you really sit back and like, if you're sitting around and you're like, I'm bored or I don't really want to be doing this, like take a second and like, what do I want to do? We spend a lot of time being like, I don't want to be doing this, or I wish I wasn't here, or whatever. What do you want to do? And sometimes it's like, I want to go on a walk. And that's exactly what I do at that moment. I just trust myself to go do it. When I'm done with the walk, I ask myself again, what do you want to do? And like now I do feel like practicing guitar scales. And I'll sit out on the front porch and I'll practice guitar scales. And the way that I practice is very musical. So I just get joy out of playing scales or, taking a chop on the guitar and moving it around, maybe I'll find a song in there. Maybe by the end of a couple hours, I've got a whole new way of playing that I just unlocked because I felt like doing that, and then I stuck with it. I stuck through all those, you get to the moments where you're like, ooh, this is frustrating, this isn't working. For me, that's sometimes a key to just, that means there's something on the other side of it, keep going. And those are things like the more you practice, the more you start to learn like to go into those things and to find the joy in a thing that's really difficult at first. But yeah, I'm not too structured about it. I don't keep a log or anything. I'll journal if there's something I need to write down, if there's something I'm feeling. If I am working towards a specific deadline on something, I might take it and split it up into like, maybe, if I find myself being particularly busy and I'm like, oh, I haven't had that much time to practice lately, I'll go into my calendar and I'll look ahead at the next week and I'll reserve time to practice. I'll just write drums in my calendar for like maybe a 2 or 3 hour block. And then that's what I'll do if I feel like I'm not getting enough of something. But generally, I kind of trust myself to balance out what I need by just paying attention to what feels like it needs my attention.
And when you talk about kind of working through some stuff and taking time to practice those chops, that's something you did with your course at Drumeo. You talked about learning to play pocket, and you play a groove, a really simple groove, for like 30 minutes. And you're sitting there, you're playing this groove, which is super basic, but you're playing it absolutely amazingly, and you're talking at the same time. It's quite a meditative kind of thing, isn't it? It's
yes.
When you get into playing that simple groove over and over again.
Yeah.
Do you treat that as a meditation? Because you talked about when you find your mind drifting, you kind of bring yourself back to what you're doing.
Yeah.
Is that your form of meditation?
That was one thing I felt like I was getting out of stick control when I was doing it by myself, and just it was me and a metronome, and I had committed myself to doing it the way that they asked me to do it, because I was like, I know there's a reason they wrote it that way, so I better at least, because you can spend a lot of time just like getting halfway through and then getting tired and stopping, or just practicing the ones that you feel like, or whatever. It takes a while to do it, so it's easy to not make your way through it the whole time. But what I realized when I committed to doing that and I just started doing it, what I noticed was all of the thoughts that would normally be occurring to me would occur to me, but I had to let them go because I needed to remember what number I was on. And I had gotten into this practice of breathing in for 2 measures and out for 2 measures because it was just easier to keep track of things that way. And so what I ended up doing was this really steady breathing exercise that also kept me checking in with my, when you're playing for half an hour, you'll feel if there's any pain or tension coming up. You have to relax it. You have to stay balanced, or it'll start to hurt. And it's not to say that's like a bad thing. That's like a definite advantage to it, is that you learn the places where you're maybe off balance, or you've maybe been holding muscles where you didn't need to be holding muscles. But yeah, I found it to be very meditative. I found it to be a place where I was able to kind of let go of a lot of the things that were bombarding me with my day or with my goals of my career or whatever, or all the pressures we put on ourselves to be a certain way, and just to focus and just do something repetitive like that. So that was something I was grateful to help give to other people, because I know that Drumeo play along unlocked for a lot of people the ability to do a thing that on your own is maybe too hard. I was fortunate that I got a lot of good instruction early on. I had people who would sit with me and play. I was in a band with other drummers where we would play rudiments together in the back. Not everyone has that. And so I was like, I want to be someone who can help other people do this thing, because I know how much it helped me. The amount of it just does make a difference when you focus on your technique like that regularly. Not only are you working out the things in your technique that need work, but you're also working out, like other things that are going on in your life. It's all related. A practice is involved in everything about your life. Like the way that you practice drums is very likely the way that you practice your other things in your life. maybe the dishes or the laundry or your work or your communication skills or your relationships or whatever else you're doing, there's a good chance that the things that you need to work on in one area carry over into the other areas. Like, for instance, if what you're learning from stick control is that, wow, I really need to relax my shoulders, there's a chance you probably need to relax your shoulders at the computer too. You probably need to relax your shoulders when you're driving. You probably need to relax your shoulders when you're in an argument, So I think practice is such a valuable tool, regardless of what it is you spend your time doing. Just committing to working on it, to getting involved in your own development is so valuable. And it can be really fun and rewarding at the same time. And it can also be very musical as you're practicing too. It doesn't have to be, right, left, right, left, right. Like that might be a little boring. That's where you start maybe. By the end of it, you're playing doubles around the kit and you feel like a butterfly floating off into space because that's how it feels today. Like who knows?
Is there any more of that to come from you? Like, are you planning on going back to Drumeo and doing more of that type of stuff? Are you going to release more of that stuff on your own website? What are you planning to do in the next couple of years?
I would love to do more work with Drumeo. I hopefully, as travel becomes more possible in the upcoming year, that becomes more available. But I would love to do more work with Drumeo. I would like to do some of those on my own as well. I've been going back and forth on how to accomplish that, because to really do a video series requires a lot of time and production, and maybe a small team of people. I guess you can really do it all on your own, but it's you got to be editing or sending off to an editor or it's a lot of work to think about doing it regularly, but that is something I want to do. I just haven't done it yet, and so I feel hesitant to be like, yeah, I'm gonna do that, because I just haven't done it yet. I would love to, though. I think it's such a valuable tool. I've actually, what I am gonna do, what I have been talking about doing, is I've been partnering up with Steve Smith over at the Seattle Drum School. Not Steve Smith, the other drummer you're thinking of, but Steve Smith at the Seattle Drum School. Him and I were talking about doing a play-along series to his method of. He's got a whole method for working through all kinds of different applications of permutations and motions and things like that, and it's really very good. It's very thorough, and but it's also very difficult to stick with. It's a lot. It's like a practice. So what I was thinking we could do was make a series of play along videos to that stuff that would not only help all the teachers, because you're giving them the thing that you're already asking them to practice. They can now practice it and play along. But also it'd be good to, to be able, as the Seattle Drum School, to put out content on the internet and just to share with the community and with the global community of drummers. So that is something that I'm hoping to do. I would love to do more of these things. I think it would be fun to do more collaborations like that. Like, I can do a lot of stuff on my own, but to keep up on things is like, there's so many different projects that require your attention that it's hard to like add a whole new thing to it, but I like doing collaborations. So maybe that's something I'll try and do is find other drummers who are doing this kind of thing and like do more lessons like the Drumeo thing.
Because you've got a ton of footage from the last year, right?
Right. So I took it around the country with me, and I have a lot of footage. I lost a couple months in there because I forgot to back up a hard drive and then it crashed. But I do have a lot of footage from last year's travel.
And what are you going to do with that?
What I want to do is cut it up and tell the story of all the stuff I did last year, and also included in that with the production of this next album, so that I can maybe release a video with the album that explains kind of how it came to be. Cool. That's what I would like to do. That's a huge project that I'm trying to figure out how to do it.
And when are you hoping, kind of tentatively, to release your album? Are you looking at later on this year, or are you looking
I'm looking at next year? I think I would love to release music before the end of this year. I would love to release a single or two, and that's what I've been working towards currently, is like to get at least a couple songs out before the end of the year. And and then to release a full album next year, hopefully.
And is there anyone that you want to work with for that album that you haven't connected with yet?
So I was making a list in my head of people I would love to produce my album, and I figured why not just aim high. So the first one on my list was Anderson .Paak, and then I was thinking St. Vincent or Esperanza Spalding or Lady Gaga, maybe. I would let her produce my album. Maybe Justin Timberlake. So if any of them see this and you're like, I want to work with her, she seems cool, I bet her songs are beautiful and she's a great drummer, go ahead and call me because I'm super into that.
I wanted to know what your thoughts were on developing belief in yourself. Because I know that's the thing a lot of people struggle with, and I'm asking for a friend. So what would you advise people do to develop a belief in themselves? Because it seems like it's something that's come very naturally to you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like I was really fortunate that early on people believed in me, or at least told me that I could do what I wanted to do. So I guess my encouragement would be to really think about what you want to see happen in your lifetime. Okay. And whether you believe you can do it or not, work towards it. It almost doesn't matter if you believe you do or not. Your actions make a difference in the world, and they build the world around you. And so I would say, whether or not you believe you're going to accomplish all your wildest dreams, I would say work towards them. I would say work towards whatever it is you want to see, and don't give up on the things that you want and being happy. I think that's something that you deserve and that you can work towards.
Are there any musicians or drummers that you look up to and you want to learn more from yourself? Who do you take inspiration from musically?
Someone I really like is Eric Moore. I like the way he plays, but also his attitude around playing and like his encouragement. And I really love Bernard Purdy. I look up to not only his style of playing, but again, he's someone who you just feel the joy of music coming out of him, and the way he sings and like the experiences that joy. That to me is really inspiring. Oh, I really love Sarah Thawer. I think that the way she plays and the things that she's doing is really inspiring. I also really look up to Madam Gandhi. She's a drummer and a producer and singer, and I love like her message and her music and her personification of what she believes in. You'll be watching videos and there's always like Thomas Lang will pop up and you're like, yes, awesome. That's inspiring. I got to keep practicing. Or like I took a drum lesson with Ari Honig when I was in New York last year, and he's incredibly inspiring. He plays so melodically, so musically, and just so thoroughly understands different polyrhythms and groupings, so that like his way of playing is just very playful and fun, but also like very out, but while staying super consistent. That's a good list. There's some good drummers in there.
That's a really good list. There's some really good names there. And I know it's really cool to hear that you're inspired by so many different drummers and musicians. And I know that a lot of people watching this are obviously inspired by you. So thank you for putting out what you put out into the world and for sharing all that stuff with us. And I hope you do a lot more of it.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, if people want to find out more about all the stuff that you're doing, where do they go?
Oh, yeah. So if you want to hear about all my stuff, heatherthomasmusic.com. That's my website. If you're on Instagram or TikTok, I'm Heather on Drums. That's really it. Oh, you can go to my Bandcamp. Just look up Heather Thomas on Bandcamp or Spotify. My music's all up there.
Cool. Heather Thomas, thank you very much for your time. I super appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And obviously, everyone can go to heatherthomasmusic.com to find out a lot more about you.
Right on.
Thank you, Heather.
Absolutely. Thank you.